Want to get the skinny on what LLMs.txt is? We've got Carolyn Shelby of Yoast to talk about their new update to help communicate which pages are most valuable to the AI agents. Today on The Edge.
Go! Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. Powered by your digital marketing pioneers, Site Strategics.
This week's featured guest is Carolyn Shelby, Principal SEO at Yoast.
Now, here's your host, Erin Sparks.
Hey, we're back. This is Edge of the Web Radio, episode 772. I'm your host, Erin Sparks. Thanks for landing on The Edge. We talk to top industry leaders from around the world to give you incredible knowledge on digital marketing tactics and the philosophies behind them. Every week, we do this for you, the digital marketing pro. Go check out edgeofthewebradio.com. We have each show we do over there with all the key links that we mention and much more. We're going to jump into our interview with Carolyn Shelby, but before anything else, make sure that you follow our guests that come on the show, ask them questions, and give them some comments about what you heard. That's the best feedback. Also, please rate this show, if you would, at ratethispodcast.com/edge. It helps grow our audience for this show. This episode is brought to you by our title sponsor, Bruce Clay, and his new app, PreWriter.AI. The next level AI-driven content research and briefing tool. Create ultra-relevant, humanized, SEO-ready drafts customized for your audience's pain points and built for Google's latest standards. Visit edgeofthewebradio.com/PreWriter to find out more. Now, let's meet this week's expert guest. All right, I'm going to introduce you to Carolyn Shelby. She's the Principal SEO at Yoast, the leading WordPress SEO plugin trusted by over 13 million active users worldwide. She's got a long career in internet technology and digital marketing that began in 1994 as a co-founder of an internet service provider near Purdue University in Indiana. She brings decades of hands-on experience to the evolving world of search. She's a specialist in technical and enterprise SEO. She's driven successful strategies with renowned organizations such as Disney's ESPN, Tribune Publishing, including Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune, and the Baltimore Sun, as well as major nonprofit institutions. It's a pleasure to be able to have her on. She's also an acclaimed international speaker and a respected authority on technical SEO. Through her consultancy, Seashell Search Strategies, she empowers brands and nonprofits to excel in modern search environments like ChatGPT, SearchGPT, and Google's AI overviews. Carolyn, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I hope I live up to the hype. That was an excellent introduction.
Thank you. Now, I was just tripping over Seashell Search Strategies because it started to get into a tongue twister right there.
It does a little bit, I know.
You did that on purpose. Hey, this is really interesting. Before we go any further, I really want to understand this. Your formal title is HM Queen Caroline of Ladonia. I got to understand, what is Ladonia? And you're the queen of this. What is this?
Okay, so it's a micronation. Micronations are small, self-declared communities that are not recognized by other large countries yet. And I did not start the country. I am actually the second queen. I was elected in 2011. It was declared in 1996. So
Yeah.
1996, 2011, that's what, I can't do math. But I'm not the founder, and I'm not the first queen. There was a vacancy on the throne. There was an election. I was nominated by someone else. There were 5 other people running. Interestingly, though, the Constitution prohibits men from the throne, so only women can run to be queen.
Oh, wow.
And
That's great.
only women can be queen. There were, like I said, 5 other people running. Someone nominated Angelina Jolie, but I actually lobbied to get her taken off the ballot because she wasn't already a citizen. And I didn't think that was particularly fair. So anyway, I won.
That's amazing.
And I've been queen ever since. Actually, we're in my Crystal Jubilee year. So this is my 15th year on the throne. And we just recently crossed 30,000 registered citizens. And we're in the process we've established a registered 501c3 not-for-profit organization in the US so that we can raise money to protect the artworks that are in Ladonia because they are made of driftwood. And if you don't maintain them on a regular basis, they will disintegrate. So that is what we do right now.
So,
You've heard of like Molossia, which is in Nevada,
uh-huh.
or Sealand, which is an air fort off the coast of England. It's very similar to that. In fact, I know them. So
Oh,
it's
that's awesome. It's a micronation, and the citizens of that micronation don't live in that specific region of Sweden, right? They are
correct.
all what you said as nomads, citizen nomads from around the world, and they all participate in the artistic and cultural build of this micronation. So they're all different artists around the world and are wanting to be able to have a communal pursuit of not only aesthetic, but also cultural concepts that they want to build up, right?
Yeah, so the artist who founded Ladonia did it sort of as a means of protecting his artworks because Sweden was trying to make him tear it down. So there was
Oh,
10
wow.
years of court battles that went up to the Swedish Supreme Court where the government was trying to force him to tear down the artworks. And ultimately, he prevailed in the sense that they were unsuccessful in forcing him to tear down the artworks. So he declared the land that the artwork sits on his. If you
Oh,
can't enforce your laws on this land, it's not your land,
absolutely.
must be mine. So he declared a country around it to not only prove his point, but also protect the artworks going forward. And that was back, like I said, in 1996. And 1996 was after 15 years, 16 years of
Of court
court
battles.
battles. So,
Wow.
the artworks have been standing since he started building them in 1980. So it's been a long time.
That's amazing. We're going to have a link in the show notes. Got to check out Ladonia.org. It's really a cool concept. And it does actually tie into a lot of concepts that we're going to be talking about in this show whenever it comes down to key concepts that you're trying to promote inside of your properties, your website, as well as be able to influence visibility of that. So I wanted to use that as an anchor and be able to. Plus, you're also promoting Driftwood, and that's our tagline for the last 14 years. So I'll swing back around to that later. That said, you are a principal over at Yoast. We love Yoast. Yoast has been one of our tool sets for our WordPress websites for about 10 years, if not more. Tell us about Yoast and what Yoast has recently done with a recent push of a new technology here. I shouldn't say technology, but a particular file type. I'll open up that door, and then we're going to walk on through it.
Well, Yoast does a lot of things, all with the idea and the goal of making SEO more accessible and easier for everyone who doesn't have deep SEO knowledge to take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of. And one of those things that we recently did was we launched an LLMs.txt file generator. So what this
Mm-hmm.
is a file that lives in the root, kind of near the robots.txt. And you would
Right.
think that since it's similarly named, it's the same, but it's really not. It's very different. The LLMs.txt is a Markdown file. So it's easier than HTML, but it's a little bit more complicated than just raw text,
Mm-hmm.
but not much more complicated, super easy, where you have the opportunity to sort of curate and selectively display to the LLMs that are coming through what the most important content on your website is so that they don't miss it. So whereas a Sitemap.xml might have a link to every single page in your website,
Right.
and the Robots.txt is going to specifically grant permission to or deny permission to crawlers to come through, the LLMs.txt is there to showcase the best content that you have and just basically, it's like a treasure map that you can
Mm-hmm.
hand to the bots as they come through and say, I know you're looking for good stuff. This is where all the good stuff is. Here, right here, go find it. And it saves them the effort and the randomness of them finding pages that maybe aren't the best answer for a question,
Mm-hmm.
or missing something that maybe you haven't been particularly good at linking to with your internal linking strategy.
Right.
It's just designed to help the robots find your good content better so that they can provide answers to people that are asking questions about your brand and get them to that right answer faster. Google traditionally we think of the crawlers in terms of like how Google crawls, which is they spider out through everything, right? They spider
Right.
out through everything, they follow all the links, and they remember everything that they find, and they kind of take it back to the mothership, and then they process it there. The LLMs, there's two different phases of what they do. One is the training data that everyone seems to focus on, and the other is the inference time query answers.
Hmm.
So when you're asking a question of like ChatGPT, you're asking it a question about, let's say Yoast, say something broke. This is the error message I got. I don't know how to fix it. How do I fix it? Rather than rely on all of the training data, because this might be a new problem. The training
Right.
data only goes up to, I think, June of last year. So if this is something we released recently, obviously it's not going to be in the training set. When they know that the answer isn't in the training set, that's an inference time query that they have to go out, grab information, because they're not searching the web and they're not crawling. They might fan out, but when they fan out, they're just anticipating additional questions that might be asked and going to grab those things at the same time too. There's no crawling involved. It's kind of like the magic claw game at
Yeah.
at the diner. It goes in, it grabs what it wants, it comes back out, and then it uses whatever it grabbed to create its answer. So, with all of that imagery in mind, what this file is trying to do is ensure that it knows how to find good information to answer those questions. Initially, what we believe that like ChatGPT and SearchGPT are doing is they're taking a pre-selected list, a pre-refined list of the best possible answers from like Bing.
Right.
They're going and searching those things. If they ask about your brand specifically, you do have a much better shot at getting something from your site included, because obviously it's going to add your brand name to that search query that it's using to get that initial list. And in theory, if you're doing things correctly, your brand name should significantly narrow down the options for those answers when that list comes back from like Bing. If
Right.
you've done something silly though, like let's say on your knowledge base, you've locked everything behind an interface where if you don't, if there's no human interaction, like to enter a question or something, you can't proceed on to get to the data, you might be kind of gatekeeping or blocking off any bots from getting those good meaty answers. The LLMs.txt, it's a hard file
I
to
know.
say, helps you bypass that a little bit to get you into where those good answers are. Because the one thing we do know about the LLM crawlers is that they don't execute JavaScript, and they're not capable of human interaction tasks like
Sure.
untoggling something to get the data that's behind the toggle,
Right.
or entering a query into a box. You have to make it so that they can get the data so that they can provide the answers. If you don't provide the answers, if you don't provide the content that they need to answer that question, you're running the risk that they're going to get the answer from like Reddit. I mean, hopefully something a little bit more reliable like Stack Overflow, but if you're not particularly technical, chances are it's going to get it from Reddit. And I don't know that as a brand manager, I would be comfortable with technical support coming from places like that.
Yeah, and we've seen just the explosion of Reddit over the course of the last year and a half, especially with the partnership that Google paid a nice sum of $60 million to get it.
It's in Google's financial interest to make sure that that little experiment succeeds. It doesn't make
Absolutely.
sense that they invest that kind of money and then not use that data aggressively. Just like we've seen with the other things that they do. You know, if you want your video to rank higher, you host it on YouTube, because Google likes to keep it in the family. Reddit's in the family now. They might be a cousin. They might be a cousin twice removed. But they're still in the families, and
it's the crazy uncle that shows up.
Yeah.
So those have the answers.
Uncle, but he's still family.
So this is a new file, and we do put a lot of weight into what Robots.txt has allowed us to do to be able to help guide and block content for search bots. And the sitemap files have been there for a long time to be able to give a full accounting of the entire inventory and set particular priorities in the XML file. But this is wholly different. This is more akin to pillar strategy when it comes down to interlinking and hub and spoke type of strategies of content. But this is really the roadmap. And I love the treasure map analogy. You are able to actually give LLMs the ability to understand what you value most on your website, which should be the authoritative answers for certain content, certain subject matter, certain products, certain services that you are actually offering on your site. Now, this doesn't go, you don't reach out externally. This is all self-referencing into the domain itself. This hasn't been thoroughly adopted yet. This is brand new within a matter of half a year here. What inspired the creation of this LLM text file?
So, a couple things. Thing number one is that it's very easy to create. So, it was a low lift thing for us to do to provide to our users.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to make yourself by hand, but you would be surprised how many people aren't comfortable doing that. So, this is something that we could add in very easily. It's something that is going to be applicable to pretty much anyone's website. It's something everyone could use, and it was a thing that we felt was a good idea. Is it a standard yet? No. However, because there's an adoption curve, and big companies are more likely to adopt things when lots of people are using them, we thought we could deploy this to 13 million websites. And look what the adoption rate just did. So our hope is that by us kind of getting behind this and saying, if we do this right, I think this could solve a lot of problems, or at least some problems for some people. But we think it could be better for the ecosystem itself. And we wanted to be a part of that. And we wanted to help try to influence and establish it as a standard. So it was just something that we looked at and said, this is a good idea, and I could see applications for this. So let's get this rolled out to our users and make their lives a little bit easier.
Hey, this episode is brought to you by our title sponsor, Bruce Clay, and his new app, PreWriter.AI, the next level AI-driven content research and briefing tool. Create ultra-relevant, humanized, SEO-ready drafts, customized for your audience pain points, and built for Google's latest standards. Visit edgeofthewebradio.com/PreWriter and see how much time you can save and the ranking power that you can earn. Guess what? We're back at Brighton SEO this year. Brighton SEO US teaming up with the Brighton SEO team again, San Diego, September 23rd and 24th. Check this out. We have 15% off a friend or a training ticket to Brighton SEO for the Edge audience. Simply use the code EDGE15 on the ticket page or go to edgeofthewebradio.com/Brighton SEO. Great lineup of speakers, talks, and networking. Keynotes from Ross Simmons and Brittany Muller. Find out more at brightonseo.com and click on the US event link. We'll see you there. We'll be conducting a number of different interviews out there. Come find us. We'll be roaming the halls, and we've got hats as well. Now, back to the show. So the file was proposed by Jeremy Howard, published September 3rd, 2024. So this is literally fresh within a year, this particular Markdown format of this file. And it has such a cutting to the chase concept is what's the most valuable content, right? What's the most valuable content and the relationship to this domain is basically a roadmap, and you can set certain parameters inside that Markdown file, right? It's very simple when it comes down to the layout and the coding of that. I see this as a kind of a watershed moment of how we can communicate to LLMs, but we also understand that the LLMs are on a particular honor system of abiding by certain blockages. I mean, there's certain snippets that we can actually put inside of the site if you don't want that content there. But at the same time, we don't have a regulatory environment where either robots.txt file or this file is really abided by. So it does have to be a kind of a community acceptance of this is how the websites really want to be found and gathered with the most pertinent information, but the large language models have to abide by that. Have you heard anything from that side of the fence, these large tech giants, that they would actually consider using this. Again, there's an adoption curve for websites, but what do you see as the adoption curve for these LLMs?
So we know that I believe it's Perplexity is looking at it, but we haven't heard anything definitive from the other LLMs. I think because they're doing testing, I think it would skew the adoption rate and it would skew the development of the standard if it were too supported. And it would also, so like with, I don't know if you remember AMP, the accelerated mobile
Oh yeah,
pages.
absolutely.
There was a lot of resistance to that because it was a Google initiative and Google was pushing it very hard. So people that weren't Google were like, no, screw them. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Even though it probably could have been maybe not necessarily as Google rolled it out, but it was a good idea. I don't know that the execution was perfect and ultimately it kind of fell out of favor,
Right.
but there were factions that didn't want anything to do with it because of who was pushing it. Similarly, Index Now is a standard that Microsoft and Bing are trying to push,
Right.
and there are people that are adopting it, but Google absolutely will not because it's not
Because
theirs.
Microsoft, exactly.
So I think it's almost a blessing if we don't get a single one large player behind it because
Hmm.
we wouldn't want, I think you run the risk of alienating other people if there's one company that's like, yeah, we're going to make this happen. And then their competitors like, just because of that, we are absolutely not going to
Yeah,
make this
yeah,
happen.
exactly. Yeah, and I liken a good adoption practice very similar to structured data. Whenever the engines got together and understood and agreed to process schema in a particular manner that it could actually understand and utilize that information on these web pages. There's a uniform acceptance, right?
Uniform acceptance, but even with that, there are certain engines that utilize schema differently, and some more and some less.
Hmm.
Google has certain things that it supports that Bing does not. Similarly, with the robots.txt, there I would see people put in allow after a disallow statement, and I would point out, I'm like, Google is the only one that looks at that allow statement. That's not a statement that everybody else adheres to. So you can't rely on just the allow statement, and you have to put the allow statement in specifically in the right order beneath the disallow, and you have to make sure that they don't step on each other. And
Right.
ultimately, once you start adding in this particular thing that only Google supports, now you've got a lot of extra complexity that you wouldn't have to worry about if you just didn't use that and were more careful about how you constructed your disallow statements. So there is always, even with the standards, there's different levels of adoption and different levels of utilization
Hmm.
across all organizations. So I don't think you're ever going to get true uniformity.
And this probably won't happen with true uniformity as well with LMS, but we are seeing the origin of a new communication tool that can be navigated by the website owner or the organization to be able to help shepherd an LLM to be able to find that most useful information. So there is the pivot point, however, is that Robot.txt would be blocking and allowing. Sitemap is a full inventory that we want to have known for the content. But now we're talking about what we prefer the LLMs to actually grab a hold of and process. And that is kind of a loaded gun because we're looking at what a website owner could very well say, hey, well, all my content's valuable. What are you talking about? How do I decide amongst my children, right? But when it
No,
gets down
no.
to it,
See,
we have to have a very objective view of our own content and also recognize the gaps of our own site content and the holes we may very well have that we haven't answered these key concepts correctly. But how does a website owner decide amongst the content that it has to be worthy of the LLMS crown?
look at the questions that people ask about your brand,
Hmm.
and then look at the content that you have that answers those questions. You have to have some means or someone in your company that answers phone calls. Like, talk to your frontline customer support people. Look at, people also ask in your reporting, like if you're using SEMrush, look at, you can go to Google Trends, trends.google.com, it's free. And you can see the kinds of questions people ask about any given topic. If it's important to your brand, that you answer that question and you have content that answers that question, that would then be a good thing to include in this file.
Hey, listeners, here's a housekeeping break. Loved seeing some of you at Brighton SEO. Had some great connections there and some really great interviews brought to you by SE Ranking. They had us come out and do a number of interviews, just taking in the whole temperature of AI and SEO now. We'll be having some of those videos coming out in the next week or so. Just want to let you know who's going to be coming up in the next few episodes. We're talking to Will Reynolds, Dana DiTomaso, Ross Simmons, and more. Check out our recent interview episode that we had with Barry Adams as well, as we discussed Google AI mode and how it's reshaping news publishing. We're always on the hunt for that next guest on the edge. If you're interested in being part of the show, just drop us a line at info@edgeofthewebradio.com. Also, make sure that you check out our alternate weekly news podcast covering the most recent digital marketing news and Google updates, some trending news, but a heavy dive into SEO, local SEO, SEM, social, AI. We're dropping it in the middle of the week, so check out your favorite subject in the news with top specialists helping us cover it as well. Our last news was back in September. We took a little bit of time off here, especially with Brighton SEO. The show was SEO News with Cindy Crum. Here's some headlines that we covered. Google expanded AI mode beyond English. We know about that, but it's gotten bigger. Reddit launched Pro Tools for publishers. A judge let Google keep Chrome, but says it must share search data with rivals. We're going to check in on that and see how that's going. Holiday shopping, unlocking the modern consumer's new value equations. They had a really good piece on that. Our Google AI overviews eating your PPC revenue. Now, on top of that, Google can't decide whether the web is thriving or dying. It really depends on who they're talking to, evidently. Be sure to check out our episode 771 to hear from Cindy Crum as we grab a hold of all things SEO. Make sure you check out our sponsors for the show as well, PreWriter.AI, as well as WAIKAY, what AI knows about you. They're here to make your digital marketing work week better. Make sure you check them out from the show links. That's how they know that you found them on the edge. Now, let's get back to the show. What are some of the risks? I mean, again, we still don't know. As this implementation is being deployed, what could be the risks if you inadvertently devalue a particular page, you don't put it in the LLMs, but you're also ranking quite well in PAAs and what have you on search ranking for a particular page? Could you very well shoot yourself in the foot?
I don't think so. I don't think this is going to be a ranking factor at all. So if you are already ranking well, especially in the top 10, you have a high likelihood of being cited anyway. You know, getting that content into the top 10 for whatever the term is 90% of the way there towards being cited by the ChatGPTs of the world, because they're looking at the very high ranking results to cherry pick which one they're going to go fetch their answer from. I've heard people say that it's a waste of time and it's dangerous. I struggle to see in what way it could be dangerous. I've heard that you're making it easy for your competitors to steal your data.
Right.
I don't see how. I would very much like to have a deeper conversation about what the mechanics of that would look like, because I'm as interested in shortcuts as the next guy, and I can't think of a way to exploit that. Maybe in the way that you wouldn't want to use the keywords meta tag because you don't want your competitors to know what you're trying to rank
you beat me
for.
to it.
Again, I feel like that's nonsense because it's going to be obvious what you're trying to rank for if you're doing it correctly.
Right. It could very well be a roadmap to a newcomer into the game to be able to read the LMS text file for your top competitors and see what they've invested in, and they rank as preferred content on the site.
That out anyway.
That's true. But it's a shortcut. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to be able to understand the competitive landscape. LLM is simply a communication tool. Keep on going.
Even if you know what your big competitor is targeting and what they're investing in, you still have to be able to replicate that in a quality fashion, build up authority, there's all sorts of other things that go into it. Otherwise, you're like a Temu version of them, and nobody wants that. Yep.
Absolutely. It's almost like it's new Coke. Nobody wants new Coke. Go back to the original recipe. Sorry, I'm just throwing analogies out like nobody's business today. How do you think this could be abused, however? Because we were talking pre-show about the tipping point of even structured data spam and what's happening in the schema evolution of deployment and potential manipulation of entities inside structured data, how could this very well be exploited? Or is it going to create just more noise?
I think worst case scenario, it creates more noise. Exploitation wise, if it were adopted and we knew that the LLMs were coming through and using that content, and if you went ahead and made a Markdown alternate of each of the pages that you had in that file, so this is where we're getting kind of layered and
Yeah.
lots of effort here for probably not a lot of gain. If you were to make a Markdown alternate of each of the files that you had in your LLMs.txt, and you felt like you needed to make some type of information exclusively available to the LLMs that you were not making available to the people and the
Ooh.
regular press that saw the real pages, then you could stuff it into that file.
Huh.
But why? Like, why?
Yeah.
What are you saying in there that's so valuable that it would not also be valuable to show to everyone else on the actual HTML page?
Right. It would make sense. I mean, it's helpful for the
No, I
user.
mean, everything because I war game out. If I were a bad person, how would I abuse this? Just like like Cloudflare announced that they were going to force the LLMs to pay for access to your site. And I'm like, well, if I were a bad
Wow.
person, what would I do? If I were a bad person and my competitor were locking down their site and charging the LLMs for access, I would make all of my content free
Right. Exactly.
because, the LLMs don't care where they get the content from. They just want the content. They don't want to have to pay for it. Very normal instinct, right? So I'm always, anytime we're presented with a new technology or a new solution, I like to sit down and say, how could this go badly? And of all the different ways it could go sideways, how bad is it going to go sideways if it does? It helps me make decisions.
I think just the future of this file, I think there could be a favorable factor as you keep it clean and fresh with more relevant information. Okay, well, this page was really important, and this is another new set of answers, and be able to see that continued update of that file. That could be another level of communication to LLMs to keep on coming back and actually drinking from the fountain more and more, and not a diffusion, but actually a pulse of information, almost like the disavow pulse that we thought Google was paying attention to. If you were giving it with regularity, would they pay more attention to that file, to that submission?
Possibly. However, the reason freshness works on the crawlers that we're accustomed to talking about is because they remember their information. So we train them to come back and refresh what they remember by keeping our content fresh and updated, right? The
Yeah.
LLMs, at least at inference time right now, have no memory. So the reason you see these huge spikes in server load from the LLMs coming back and hitting a page to answer a question is because every time someone asks that question, they have to go collect the data because they have no memory. It's not like they go and they're like, someone says, how much is 2 + 2? And it goes and checks. This is okay. 2 + 2 is 4. I'll remember that. And then they can answer that the next time somebody asks. They forget. Like they have zero memory. Like they're goldfish. We got to stop thinking about them like spiders and start thinking about them like goldfish. They swim over, they get what they need, they go back, they barf it up onto the floor, and then they forget instantly. And the next time someone asks, they have to go do the same thing over and over again. And that's why people are ending up with these horrific spikes on their servers, because they're popular. A lot of people are asking the same question, but they have to keep hitting your server to get that answer every time someone asks a question because they have no memory.
So they won't have memory of changes in the LMS. They'll be hitting
No,
that
so every
file.
time they come by,
Yeah.
it's brand new to them, and it's what was that one movie, 50 First Dates or something like that, where every morning she woke up, it's like, you're an amazing person. I just
Oh,
met you.
yeah. I think we're hitting a top level set of analogies and metaphors in this show. Our friends at Inlinks have made a really cool tool, WAIKAY, W-A-I-K-A-Y. What AI knows about you. Are you aware of how AI is shaping your brand's online presence? With WAIKAY, you can stay informed about what AI is saying about your brand. This powerful tool gives you insights into how your brand is perceived by key audiences and provides actionable ways to improve it. WAIKAY helps you compare your AI presence to competitors, uncovering valuable content opportunities and identifying harmful link hallucinations all in one simple report. Plus, there's a brand new SEO report that will help you fine-tune your website's search engine performance. It's the easiest way to monitor and optimize your brand's digital narrative in AI. Best of all, WAIKAY provides concrete recommendations to enhance your AI visibility. If you're looking to stay ahead of the curve in AI and manage your brand's digital image, go over to edgeofthewebradio.com/WAIKAY. That's WAIKAY. That's your go-to solution. And the best part, it's free. Go check this out. You're absolutely right. That's the space in which LLMs are actually processing for now, right? But the potential future of this file, we don't know what it is. So
I don't see a big downside. It's so easy to implement. It's so easy to write. Like, why would you, on the off chance that this ends up becoming something that is useful, now you're ahead of the curve. You know how to use it. You know how to create it. You know how to maintain it. And you're kind of out there at the leading edge of this development.
Absolutely. And we also talked pre-show about some signals that you're seeing from some of the giants in the industry, as SEMrush has actually updated their audit tool to be able to reference LLMs.txt as an additional factor, whether or not you have Robots.txt, whether or not you have LLMs.txt. So, I mean, we're taking it seriously. The industry is. What pushback have you heard from the industry to kind of round this out?
Yeah, so much pushback. A lot of it is, this is a waste of time and it's not worth your effort. Okay, I don't think it's that much effort, so I'm mildly confused about it's not worth the effort, because this is literally, there's $10 on the floor, bend over and pick it up.
Right.
That's the level of effort as far as I can tell. I'd be interested to know what kind of implementation people are thinking about that's going to be so much extra effort. The other pushback I've heard is it's not necessary, and that if your site is sound and the structure is good, you don't need to have this. You should have a good site. I 100% agree with that. However, 99% of what we do as SEOs is not necessary if your site is well structured and clean and technically sound.
Right.
You don't need schema. You don't need a robots.txt. You don't need a sitemap. You don't need 90% of what you do as an SEO is to mitigate the garbage that the devs have introduced into the site to make it prettier for humans. So if you have a perfect, clean website, Godspeed. You don't need any of this stuff. Merry Christmas. But the rest of us have websites that are just flooded with the digital equivalent of jazz hands all over the place.
I knew you were
And
going to go
it's
there.
distracting. Yeah, it's digital jazz hands. It's a flaming pile of spaghetti, and you need some of these things to help the bots navigate the wreckage of your code. So I will concede that if you have a perfect site, you absolutely don't need any of this. But that holds true for schema and many of the other things that we do as SEOs to make our sites more understandable and more accessible to the bots.
Got to first admit that you've got a problem. Yes, I've got terrible code on my website. I'm going to try to be able to counter that with some additional signals that the engines and the LLMs can actually start beginning to trust more and more, because there is such noise and embedded deterrence from actually grabbing a hold of that content correctly. So these are useful tools. They're not necessary, but what's the harm? And that's ultimately your point here, is that there's no downside for capitalizing on something that's fresh and new into the marketplace, right?
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's easy. It's like, I don't know, taking vitamins in the morning or putting your seatbelt on. Just because you wear a seatbelt doesn't mean you're going to get in a car accident. And just because you have your seatbelt on doesn't mean that you're going to survive a car accident. But it's an easy thing that's there that you can do just in case. So why not?
That. Well, it does have the trappings of something that's going to be evolving in the future. And, there's the other side of the equation that we're going to be talking about in our second segment is really how to make content more valuable to LLM. So it's a process of, hey, there's some technology here, but what we really should be paying attention to is what these large language models are really processing now with fan-out behavior and the like. We're going to be talking about that in the second episode. I really do appreciate just sharing and kind of unpacking what this file is for our audience. And on top of that, deploying it through Yoast. What a great way to get a massive acceptance very, very quickly. That's awesome.
That's the strategy.
It's a well-honed strategy. So we want to make sure that our listeners follow you on X at @CShell, and you can also find Carolyn on LinkedIn as well. Anything that we can promote for our listeners today?
Well, since we brought up Ladonia, if you are interested in supporting our efforts to preserve Nimis, which is our big 75-ton driftwood sculpture, and you want to go to our website and throw $5 at our little PayPal donation thing, I'd super appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to have the links on the show as well. You can see that on the screen as well. So if you're listening to this show, go over to the YouTube channel and have a look at our show pieces as we roll this out for this segment. Carolyn, it's been a pleasure unpacking LLMs.txt, and I'm looking forward to the future because I do think that this is a clear way to be able to communicate to large language models the value that you perceive that your site has. You just don't want to have every page under the sun in there. And if you don't have that inventory of what's the most valuable things in your site, the concepts, you should probably inventory that very quickly and understand what gaps you may have as well. So there's the lesson learned. It's kind of like a forcing function is going through your LLM text file. And if you don't have anything that's worthy of the chat GPTs and the Geminis of the world to pick up, then you probably need to start investing in that content. So we're going to be talking about that next.
Oh, I was going to say real quick, if you ask ChatGPT to make one of these files for you, first thing you have to do is you have to go grab the standard document, save it as a PDF, feed that into ChatGPT and say, based on this standard, can you generate this file for my website? It'll say, okay, it'll format it correctly, but it's going to make stuff up. It's going to make up things people want to read about on your site. And it's good just in terms of understanding if ChatGPT is guessing at what people are likely to want to know, can you answer those questions? And if you can't, maybe you should.
Very good. We'll wrap this up there. Carolyn, thank you so much for your time today. And again, unpacking all this. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this in the future. You can find Carolyn on the socials that we gave you, as well as find us over on X, over at Edge Web Radio. Thanks to our sponsors as well. They certainly want to make your work week better in the digital marketing space. So go check them out from the show links. That's how they know that you found them on the Edge. From all of us over the Edge, stay safe and stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. See? There's a link there.